The 10 most dangerous prisoners inside Angola Prison. A prison built on bones. They call it Angola, not the country. The prison. 18,000 acres of razor wire, swampland, and forgotten souls sitting on what was once a brutal slave plantation along the Mississippi River. This is Louisiana State Penitentiary, America's largest maximum security prison. A place so isolated that helicopters are sometimes the fastest way in and sometimes the only way out. Here, more than 5,000 men wake up every morning knowing one hard truth. Most of them will die inside these walls. No release date, no second chances, just concrete, steel, and time. Angola doesn't just house criminals. It buries them. Over 70% of inmates here are serving life sentences. That means nothing to lose. No parole, no countdown, just survival. And when you put thousands of men with nothing left to lose into one violent ecosystem, something dark begins to grow. This is where murderers live beside murderers, where gang leaders walk past serial killers, where former hitmen eat breakfast next to child predators, where power is earned through blood, and fear is currency. Tonight, we're going inside this hidden world. Inside cell blocks most Americans will never see. Inside stories officials don't like to talk about. And inside the lives of 10 inmates whose names still echo through Angola's corridors. Not because they're famous, but because they're feared. Before we dive in, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoy true crime stories like this, be sure to like the video, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share it with someone who'd love it too. Long before it became a prison, Angola was hell. In the early 1800s, this land was a massive slave plantation. Thousands of enslaved Africans were forced to work the fields here under unbearable heat, disease, and violence. Many never made it out alive. Historians believe the name Angola came from the homeland of many enslaved people brought here in chains. Their suffering soaked into the soil. And when Louisiana turned the plantation into a penitentiary in 1901, the cruelty didn't disappear. It evolved. Early prisoners were leased out to private companies. They were beaten, starved, worked to death. Escapes were punished with execution. Guards ruled with whips, and bodies were buried without records. Even today, inmates say the ground feels haunted, that the prison carries memory, that Angola remembers everything. Modern Angola is massive, 18,000 acres. Farms, factories, roads, churches, barbershops, even a radio station. It operates like its own city. But unlike any city you've ever known, nobody here goes home. Inmates work the fields under armed guards on horseback. Some make license plates. Some cook. Some clean. Others join prison gangs just to survive. Violence doesn't always come loudly. Sometimes it arrives quietly in stairwells, laundry rooms, and showers. Shanks made from toothbrushes, locks tied in socks, boiling water thrown in faces, hits ordered with cigarettes. There are no neighborhoods here, only territories. And everyone knows who controls which. Correctional officers try to maintain order, but even they admit Angola doesn't belong to the guards. It belongs to the inmates, especially the ones serving life. Angola doesn't take just anyone. This is where Louisiana sends its worst. Mass murderers, serial rapists, gang leaders, death row inmates, men whose crimes shocked entire communities. Some arrived after killing police officers, some after slaughtering families, some after committing crimes so disturbing, even hardened guards struggle to talk about them. And when these men arrive, they bring their reputations with them. Stories spread fast. Who stabbed who ran which gang, who killed inside another prison, who can't be crossed. Inside Angola, your past doesn't disappear. It follows you. There are rules here, unwritten ones. You don't stare too long. You don't sit where you're not invited. You don't borrow unless you can pay back. You don't snitch, ever. Breaking these rules can cost you teeth, bones, or your life. New inmates learn quickly. Find protection. Join a group, or become prey. Some men harden, others collapse, and a few become monsters. Those are the men we're about to meet. But before we name names, you need to understand something important. These prisoners weren't born dangerous. They were shaped by violence, by trauma, by abandonment, by choices that spiraled out of control. Each one has a story, and every story leaves wreckage behind. Inside Angola, there's an informal ranking, not official, but everyone knows it exists. It's whispered about in cell blocks, passed along through guards, shared between inmates, a list of men you don't challenge, don't provoke, don't cross. Some earn their place through brutality on the streets, others through violence behind bars, some through influence, some through sheer unpredictability. These are the 10 inmates whose names still carry weight. 10 men whose presence alone can silence a room. 10 prisoners who turn Angola into their personal battlefield. And we're starting with a man whose crimes shook Louisiana to its core. A man who arrived in Angola already infamous. A man whose story begins with quiet neighborhood and ends with bodies on the floor. He was only 17 when he pulled the trigger for the first time. By 19, he had multiple bodies tied to his name. Witnesses described him as calm, emotionless, almost polite. Prosecutors said he treated murder like a routine task. When he finally arrived at Angola, older inmates expected him to break. Instead, he adapted. Fast, he learned who to align with, who to avoid, and how to make himself useful. Today, even men twice his size think carefully before speaking his name. But his rise inside Angola came with a cost. Because someone always pays when power shifts. And his story doesn't end with his arrest. It begins there. Every inmate who enters Louisiana State Penitentiary remembers their first walk through the gates. It's quiet, not peaceful quiet. The kind of quiet that feels heavy, like the air itself is watching. Buses roll past armed towers. Razor wire glints in the sun. Guards with shotguns scan every movement. Then the doors open and reality crashes in all at once. For most prisons, intake is paperwork. At Angola, intake is psychological warfare. Men are stripped, searched, shaved, cataloged. Their clothes replaced with prison whites. Their identities replaced with numbers. And then comes the sentence that hits hardest. You'll probably die here. Because statistically, that's true. Angola holds more lifers than almost any prison in America. Some inmates arrive screaming. Others arrive silent. But everyone feels the same thing. Finality. This isn't a stop on the journey. This is the end of the road. And that's exactly what prisoner number 10 felt when he stepped onto Angola soil for the first time. He grew up in chaos. Broken homes. Empty refrigerators. Gunshots outside his bedroom window. By age 12, he was running packages for older boys. By 15, he was carrying a pistol. By 17, he had his first confirmed kill. Police record described him as soft-spoken. Neighbors said he was polite. Teachers remembered him as quiet. But behind that calm exterior lived something colder. Prosecutors later revealed that his crimes weren't emotional. They were transactional. Drug disputes, territory conflicts, retaliation killings. He didn't rage. He calculated. His final arrest came after a double homicide tied to a street gang feud. Surveillance footage placed him near the scene. Cell phone pings confirmed movement patterns. Witnesses finally broke their silence. At trial, family members of the victims begged for mercy. He stared forward. No reaction. The jury took less than 3 hours. Life without parole. When he arrived at Angola at just 19 years old, guards assumed he'd be eaten alive. Young inmates usually don't last. They get extorted, jumped, used. But prisoner 10 had something rare. Patience. Angola doesn't reward strength. It rewards awareness. In his first week, prisoner 10 said almost nothing. He watched everything. Which tables different groups used in the chow hall, which showers were safe, which stairwells weren't. He learned who controlled contraband, who handled protection, who enforced discipline. He didn't rush into alliances. He waited. Older inmates noticed. So did gang shot callers. Within months, He was running messages, moving commissary, relaying information. Nothing flashy, just enough to become useful. That's how power begins inside Angola, not with violence, with reliability. Then came his first test. A veteran inmate accused him of shorting cigarettes during a trade. In most prisons, that would end with fists. At Angola, it can end with funerals. They met in the yard. No guards nearby. Witnesses say prisoner 10 didn't raise his voice, didn't posture. He simply told the man, "You don't want this." The veteran laughed. 3 days later, that same inmate was stabbed in a laundry room with a sharpened piece of metal. No witnesses, no charges, but everyone knew. From that moment on, prisoner 10 wasn't a kid anymore. He was a problem. Angola violence rarely looks like movie fights. There's no dramatic buildup, no shouting matches. It happens fast, quiet, targeted. An inmate slips in the shower. Someone bumps into another in the hallway. A tray gets dropped in the cafeteria. By the time guards respond, it's already over. Prisoner 10 learned this rhythm quickly. He never attacked publicly, never drew attention. He operated through others. You don't see the knife. You see the result. By his second year, he had earned protection from a larger prison group, not because he was strongest, because he was effective, and effectiveness travels. Every rise comes with enemies. A fellow inmate someone prisoner 10 had trusted began talking. Small things at first. Who was moving contraband? Who had weapons? Which cells were safe? Word reached prisoner 10 through prison channels. He confronted the man privately. The man denied everything, swore loyalty. But loyalty inside Angola lasts exactly as long as fear. 2 weeks later, that same inmate was found unconscious behind a kitchen building. Broken jaw, cracked ribs, permanent nerve damage in his right arm. After that, no one questioned prisoner 10's authority again. But something changed inside him. According to guards, he stopped smiling, stopped joking, stopped pretending. From that point forward, he moved like someone who expected betrayal everywhere. Because inside Angola, betrayal is inevitable. Psychologists who study Angola say something important. When men lose hope, morality becomes optional. You can't rehabilitate someone who believes their life is already over. You can't threaten someone who has nothing left. That's why Angola is different. There's no countdown clock, no parole hearing to behave for, just endless days that bleed into each other. So inmates create their own systems, their own justice, their own hierarchy. And prisoner 10 was climbing fast, but he was only number 10 on our list, because compared to what's coming next, he's just the beginning. Number 9 didn't start as a killer. He started as muscle, a big body used by smaller minds. But over time, he stopped taking orders and started giving them. He became known for handling discipline. If someone owed money, if someone disrespected leadership, if someone talked to guards, they sent him. His reputation wasn't built on how many people he hurt. It was built on how he hurt them. And when he arrived at Angola, even seasoned inmates kept their distance. Because unlike prisoner 10, number 9 doesn't wait. Number 9 didn't grow up dreaming of crime. He grew up invisible. Small apartment, single parent, teachers who barely remembered his name, kids who picked on him because he was quiet. He learned early that silence doesn't protect you. Strength does. By 16, he was lifting weights obsessively. By 18, he was bouncing at underground clubs. By 20, he was working security for drug dealers who paid in cash and loyalty. That's how it started. Not with violence, with protection. He became the guy people called when situations felt unstable, when arguments turned heated, when debts went unpaid. At first, his job was just to stand nearby. His size alone ended most conflicts. But over time, the requests changed. Talk to him. Scare him. Make sure it doesn't happen again. Eventually, words weren't enough. The first time he broke someone's jaw, witnesses said he looked shocked. The second time, calm. By the fifth, practiced. His arrest came after he beat a man so badly over a drug debt that doctors couldn't save him. The victim died in the hospital 3 days later. Number 9 showed no emotion during interrogation. No tears. No excuses. Just a quiet admission. He knew the rules. The judge handed down life without parole. And Angola gained another predator. Inside Angola, Number 9 didn't try to be a leader. He didn't give speeches. Didn't recruit. Didn't organize. He offered one thing: certainty. If someone needed punishment delivered, he volunteered. If someone needed to be made an example of, he stepped forward. He didn't enjoy it. He didn't brag. He simply did the work. That's what made him terrifying. Most violent inmates act out of emotion, anger, ego, fear. Number 9 acted like violence was a chore, something to finish before dinner. Other prisoners started calling him the Hammer because once leadership pointed in a direction, he swung. Guards noticed the pattern. Whenever someone crossed the wrong people, Number 9 was nearby, not caught, not charged, just present. His hands always clean. His reputation always growing. Every prison has stories. Angola has legends. One of them involved a shower room late one evening. An inmate had been skimming commissary profits. Small amounts, just enough to go unnoticed, until it didn't. Witnesses say Number 9 approached him calmly while the water was running. No yelling, no threats, just 3 quiet words. You already know. Minutes later, guards responded to screams echoing through concrete halls. They found the victim curled on the floor, ribs shattered, face swollen beyond recognition. No weapons, just hands. The inmate survived. Barely. He was transferred to another unit and never spoke again. From that day forward, even hardened lifers avoided crossing Number 9 because knives can be taken away. Strength cannot. In a place where hope is extinct, power replaces purpose. Some men lead with charisma, some with money, some with fear. Number 9 led with inevitability. If leadership wanted something done, it got done. If someone needed silencing, they went silent. He became indispensable, and that made him untouchable. But power inside Angola always attracts challengers, and sooner or later, someone always tests the enforcer. It started with a younger inmate, hot-headed, new to Angola, trying to prove himself. He bumped into Number 9 deliberately in the chow hall, spilled food, smirked. Everyone froze. That kind of disrespect doesn't go unanswered. Number 9 didn't react. He picked up his tray, finished his meal, walked away. 3 nights later, the young inmate was found unconscious in a stairwell with a fractured skull and permanent vision damage. No witnesses, no charges, but the message was clear. Angola had spoken. What people don't realize is that enforcers pay a price too. Number 9 now spends most of his time in restricted housing. Limited movement, limited privileges. Guards monitor him closely. He eats alone, showers alone, sleeps alone. That's the trade. Power for isolation, respect for loneliness. He became dangerous enough that the prison itself had contained him. And yet, he's still only Number 9 on our list, because ahead of him are men who didn't just enforce violence. They engineered it. Number 8 wasn't built like Number 9. He didn't intimidate with size. He intimidated with strategy. Before prison, he ran operations across multiple states. Inside prison, he rebuilt his network from scratch. He controls people who don't even realize they work for him. He moves influence through phone calls, coded letters, and favors. Guards say he's polite. Inmates say he's untouchable. And investigators believe he's still directing criminal activity from behind bars. He doesn't swing fists. He moves chess pieces. And when Number 8 enters the picture, things stop being random. Number 8 never looked dangerous. That's what fooled people. He wasn't tall. He wasn't muscular. He didn't raise his voice. On the streets, he wore clean clothes and spoke softly. He shook hands, remembered birthdays, asked about people's kids. But behind that calm exterior was a network that stretched across cities. He wasn't a trigger man. He was an organizer. While others sold drugs on corners, Number 8 managed supply routes. While others collected cash, he tracked accounts. While others went to jail, he stayed invisible until one mistake brought everything crashing down. Federal investigators tied him to a multi-state trafficking operation. Wiretaps revealed coded conversations. Financial records exposed shell accounts. Informants finally stepped forward. When he was arrested, police expected resistance. He smiled. At trial, prosecutors painted him as a quiet kingpin, a man who made violence happen without ever touching a weapon. Life without parole. No outbursts. No breakdown. Just a nod as the sentence was read. That's how Number 8 entered Angola, already thinking 3 moves ahead. Most inmates lose everything when they arrive. Number 8 rebuilt. He started small, helping men write letters, explaining commissary systems, giving advice on appeals. He became useful, then indispensable. He learned which guards were careless, which phones worked best, which inmates had family on the outside. Within a year, he had created something rare, a communication pipeline. Messages moved through coded notes. Phone calls used layered conversations. Legal mail carried hidden instructions. He never ordered violence directly. He framed everything as favors. Take care of him. Handle that situation. Make it quiet. And people listened because Number 8 controlled resources. And resources mean survival. Every empire attracts leaks. One inmate started feeding information to officers. Names, times, locations. Word reached Number 8 within days. He didn't confront the informant, didn't threaten him, didn't even acknowledge him. Instead, he stopped providing favors, stopped sharing commissary, stopped passing messages. The informant became isolated. Then one morning, during work detail, he disappeared. Guards found him hours later behind an equipment shed, alive, but barely. Broken collarbone, concussion, internal injuries. He refused medical questions, refused to cooperate, and requested immediate protective custody. Number 8 was never charged. He didn't need to be. Everyone understood the warning. People fear violent men, but prisons fear planners, because muscle can be restrained, weapons can be confiscated, but influence? Influence lives in conversations, in favors, in debts. Number 8 didn't scare people. He made them dependent. Guards described him as respectful. Inmates described him as unavoidable. And that combination made him one of the most powerful men in Angola. But even chess masters eventually faced chaos. And chaos was coming. It started with a fight between rival groups in the yard, then a stabbing near the kitchen, then another incident in the dorms. Within hours, the entire compound went into lockdown. Cells sealed, movement frozen, phones cut, programs suspended. Investigators swept units for weapons. Dozens of inmates were separated. And in the middle of it all, Number 8 was moved to segregation, not for violence, for coordination. Authorities believed he had orchestrated multiple incidents, simultaneously testing response times, guard rotations, and emergency procedures. It was strategy disguised as chaos. Segregation slowed him down, but it didn't stop him, because systems like his don't collapse overnight. They evolve. Number 7 isn't powerful. He isn't organized. He isn't respected. He's feared for a different reason. Unpredictability. Some days he's quiet. Other days he explodes without warning. Guards say they never know which version they're getting. Inmates avoid eye contact. Psychologists label him impulsive. Correctional officers label him dangerous. He's attacked over insults that never happened. He's assaulted men who simply walked too close. And when he arrived at Angola, his reputation followed him. Because unlike the others, Number 7 doesn't plan. He reacts, and that makes him terrifying. Number 7's story begins with untreated trauma, childhood abuse, years in foster care, diagnoses that were never followed up, medication he stopped taking. By adulthood, he was already spiraling. His crime was brutal and sudden and explosive act of violence triggered by a perceived threat that didn't exist. At trial, experts testified about mental instability. The court still handed down life. Inside Angola, his condition worsened. Isolation amplified paranoia. Noise triggered rage. Crowds overwhelmed him. He lashed out often, sometimes at inmates, sometimes at walls, sometimes at himself. He's been placed in restraint chairs, pepper sprayed, hospitalized, returned, again and again. And yet, he remains in general population because Angola doesn't have enough mental health beds. So men like number 7 circulate among everyone else, like live wires. Most inmates don't attack officers. The consequences are severe, but number 7 doesn't calculate consequences. He once threw boiling water at a guard who asked him to step aside. Another time, he charged an officer during count. Both incidents ended with extraction teams. Both ended with injuries. And both added years of disciplinary segregation. But punishment doesn't fix psychosis. It just buries it. Number 7 isn't a kingpin. He isn't a boss. He doesn't control territory. He made this list because he's chaos in human form. You can't predict him. You can't negotiate with him. You can't reason with him. And in a prison full of men already living on edge, that makes him lethal. But he's still not halfway through our countdown. Because coming next are men who weaponize loyalty, who ruled through gangs, who turned cell blocks into battlegrounds. Number 6 didn't just join a prison gang. He rebuilt one. He unified fractured crews, created rank systems, established consequences. Under his leadership, assaults became coordinated, drug routes became organized, protection became mandatory. He didn't need to threaten. His soldiers did it for him. And when number 6 took control, Angola's balance of power shifted. Number 6 didn't arrive at Angola as a leader. He arrived broken, fresh off a long stretch in county jail, bruised from street wars, separated from his crew, stripped of status. On the outside, he had been mid-level muscle for a neighborhood gang not famous, not feared, just another soldier following orders. But prison changes men, and Angola rewrites them. He quickly realized something most inmates never understand. In here, chaos creates opportunity. Different gangs controlled different dorms. Racial groups stayed mostly separate. Territories shifted weekly. There was no central authority among inmates, just fragile alliances held together by fear. Number 6 saw the gap, and he stepped into it. He started by listening, not talking. Listening. He spent weeks sitting at different tables, walking different yards, learning which groups hated each other, who felt disrespected, who felt abandoned. Then he began connecting dots. He approached smaller crews, first men who felt invisible. He promised protection, structure, representation. He didn't ask for loyalty. He offered purpose. Within months, he had unified 3 rival factions under a single banner. They adopted rank systems, rules, consequences. Everyone had a role. Lookouts, runners, collectors, enforcers. Number 6 didn't scream orders. He delegated. He coached. He built. Soon, when something happened in one dorm, it echoed in another, not randomly. Strategically, Angola had a new power center. The turning point came during evening recreation. A rival group tried to reclaim territory near the phones. It started with words, then shoving, then someone swung. Within seconds, coordinated chaos erupted. Multiple fights, simultaneous distractions, guards overwhelmed. While officers focused on the main yard, number 6 men moved elsewhere collecting debts, seizing contraband, sending messages. By the time lockdown was called, the damage was done. 3 inmates hospitalized, 2 stabbed, 1 with permanent nerve damage. Officials later realized this wasn't a spontaneous riot. It was a rehearsal. Number 6 had just proven he could mobilize dozens of men at once. That's when administration started watching him closely. But by then, he was already entrenched. Every organization runs on accountability. Number 6 enforced his rules brutally. Missed payments, disrespect, unauthorized contact with guards. Punishments were swift. Sometimes it was isolation. Sometimes it was beatings. Sometimes it was worse. Inmates learned quickly. Being neutral was an option. You were either with him or vulnerable. He didn't demand loyalty. He manufactured it. Word spread that someone inside his circle was feeding information to staff. Instead of reacting publicly, Number 6 called a quiet meeting. No threats. No accusations. He asked one question. Who feels unsafe? No one answered. 3 days later, the suspected informant was attacked in a stairwell between housing units. Broken nose. Dislocated shoulder. 2 cracked ribs. The victim refused to cooperate with investigators. Number 6 was never linked directly, but his message traveled fast. Leaks would be sealed. Permanently. Guards can stop individual violence. They struggle against organized violence. Number 6 didn't act alone. He didn't carry weapons. He didn't raise his voice. He coordinated. And coordination is harder to contain than fists. Administration moved him to restricted housing, separated his closest allies, rotated dorm assignments. But influence doesn't disappear just because walls move. Even isolated, Number 6 still controlled decisions, still passed messages, still shaped outcomes. He had transformed from inmate to infrastructure. Number 5 doesn't belong to any gang. He doesn't enforce rules. He doesn't organize crews. He hunts alone. Guards describe him as cooperative. Psych evaluations label him detached. Inmates say he watches people the way animals watch prey. His crimes were intimate, personal, and what makes him terrifying isn't rage. It's patience. He waits, observes, chooses, and when he strikes, there's no warning. Number 5 speaks softly, almost kindly. He helps older inmates carry trays. He holds doors open. He remembers birthdays. But behind that politeness is a history of calculated violence. On the outside, he targeted people he felt had wronged him, former partners, acquaintances, neighbors. Each attack was deliberate, each victim chosen, each scene cleaned. It took years for investigators to connect the dots. By the time he was caught, multiple families had already buried loved ones. At sentencing, he apologized, not for the killings, for the inconvenience. That was the moment everyone realized something inside him was missing. Number 5 doesn't intimidate. He blends. He memorizes routines, learns schedules, tracks patterns. He waits for moments when cameras are angled wrong, when guards are distracted, when inmates are alone. His assaults are precise, quick, quiet. Victims often don't realize what's happening until it's over. He doesn't boast, doesn't threaten, doesn't claim credit. He disappears back into normalcy. That's why he's so dangerous. You don't see him coming. One afternoon, an inmate was attacked near the prison library. No witnesses, no alarms, just blood on the floor and a man gasping for air. Security footage later showed Number 5 walking calmly past the camera minutes before the incident, hands behind his back, eyes forward, no urgency. The victim survived but refused to speak. Administration placed Number 5 under enhanced monitoring. But again, no charges stuck, because predators like him don't leave evidence. They leave trauma. Number 6 controls groups. Number 5 controls moments. He doesn't need approval. He doesn't need backup. He acts alone. And that unpredictability puts everyone on edge. Even gang leaders avoid him, because you can negotiate with power. You can't negotiate with silence. Number 4 didn't just commit murder on the outside. He continued inside. He's one of the rare inmates with confirmed killings behind bars. He doesn't plan. He explodes. His record includes multiple stabbings, assaults on staff, and prolonged stays in solitary. And when he walks through a unit, conversations stop. Number 4 arrived already carrying blood on his hands. Armed robbery turned homicide. A convenience store clerk who didn't move fast enough. A panic trigger pull. A life sentence handed down while the victim's family cried in the gallery. But unlike most inmates, Number 4 didn't stop killing when he entered prison. He escalated. Inside Angola, violence isn't rare, but confirmed inmate-on-inmate murder? That's different. That changes everything. Number 4 didn't just adapt to prison life. He weaponized it. Guards describe him as volatile. Psych evaluations list impulse control disorder. Inmates describe him more simply. He snaps. Sometimes it's a look, sometimes a comment, sometimes nothing at all. One moment he's sitting quietly. The next he's charging. Punches flying. Objects thrown. Teeth breaking. He's been restrained more times than most prisoners can count. Pepper spray. Extraction teams. Medical isolation. Nothing sticks. Because rage like his doesn't cool down. It simmers. It happened during morning movement. 2 inmates were assigned to the same cleaning detail. They had history. Old tension from a card game. Words exchanged weeks earlier. Nothing major. Or so everyone thought. Without warning, number 4 attacked. Witnesses say he pulled a homemade blade from his sleeve and drove it into the other man's chest. Once. Twice. 3 times. By the time guards reached him, it was already over. The victim died before paramedics arrived. Cell blocks were sealed. Yards locked down. Phones shut off. Every inmate ordered face down. It was one of the rare moments when Angola froze completely. Number 4 showed no resistance. He handed over the weapon, allowed himself to be cuffed. Later, during questioning, he reportedly said, "He disrespected me." That was it. One sentence. One life erased. Most inmates fear segregation. Number 4 lives there. Years of his sentence have been spent in isolation. 23 hours a day in a concrete box. No programs. No yard. No human contact. Just walls. But isolation doesn't rehabilitate someone like him. It calcifies them. Psychologists warn that prolonged solitary confinement worsened his instability. Administration had no alternative. He was too dangerous for general population, too volatile for mental health units. So he existed in limbo, a human pressure cooker, waiting. Plenty of inmates are violent. Few cross the ultimate line while already serving life. Number 4 did. He proved that even inside maximum security, some men remain untouchable, uncontainable, and if he could kill once behind bars, everyone knew he could do it again. But as dangerous as number 4 is, there are still 3 men above him. Men who didn't just act alone. Men who reshaped Angola itself. Number 3 never throws punches. He never carries weapons. He rarely even leaves his housing unit. Yet his decisions have led to more injuries than almost anyone else on this list. He controls gangs through intermediaries, orders assaults through favors, moves drugs with coded phone calls. He's not visible. He's embedded. And that makes him lethal. Number 3 started as a low-level street dealer. Nothing special. Until he learned how to manipulate people. On the outside, he coordinated crews through burner phones. Inside prison, he perfected the craft. He doesn't command loyalty. He manufactures dependency. He connects desperate inmates with protection, with contraband, with favors. Then he keeps receipts. Every cigarette, every meal tray, every borrowed dollar. When the time comes, he collects. And collection doesn't always mean money. Sometimes it means violence. Number 3 rarely appears in incident reports. He's polite to guards, keeps his cell clean, follows routine. That's intentional. He lets others do the dirty work. If someone gets stabbed, it's not him. If a fight breaks out, he's already somewhere else. But investigators notice patterns. The same names appearing around incidents. The same phone numbers popping up in intercepted calls. The same handwriting on notes passed between units. He wasn't reacting to events. He was orchestrating them. At one point, number 3 tried to expand too aggressively. He pushed into territory controlled by number 6 network. The result was a silent war. Stabbings increased. Contraband routes collapsed. 2 housing units went into extended lockdown. Administration separated dozens of inmates. Both sides lost influence. But number 3 learned a lesson. Don't challenge armies directly. Work behind them. Since then, he's operated quietly, strategically, letting others absorb the consequences. Number 4 acts on emotion. Number 3 acts on systems. He doesn't need anger. He needs leverage. That's what puts him near the top, because he doesn't create chaos. He controls it. Number 2 arrived famous. Not celebrity famous. Infamous. His crimes made headlines. Entire communities followed his trial. He carried his reputation into Angola, and once inside, he used it. You don't build fear from scratch when people already know your name. He brought his legacy with him, and that legacy still shapes how inmates move today. Number 2 committed multiple murders before his arrest. Not impulsive, not accidental, planned, coordinated, cold. By the time he was captured, he had become a symbol of terror on the outside. Inside Angola, inmates already knew his story. Some admired him. Most avoided him. He didn't seek control. Control came to him. Men aligned with him simply because of who he was. Because reputation travels faster than fists. Number 2 leveraged notoriety. He didn't need to prove himself. He already had. People brought him information, brought him contraband, brought him protection. He became a gravity well. Others orbited around him. And when he spoke, people listened, not because he yelled, but because ignoring him felt dangerous. At one point, Number 2 was suspected of coordinating an assault on a rival inmate. Administration moved him to restricted housing. His allies protested. Refuse work detail. Refuse movement. For several hours, parts of the compound stalled. Officials restored order. But the message was clear. Even separated, Number 2 still had reach, still had influence, still had followers. Number 2 built power on reputation. Number 3 built power on systems. But the man at the very top, he built power on fear. Pure fear. Number 1 isn't just dangerous. He's symbolic. He represents everything Angola is known for. Extreme violence. Life sentences. No remorse. His crimes shocked the nation. His behavior inside prison reinforced his legend. Guards know him. Inmates whisper about him. New arrivals hear his name within days. He doesn't need to assert dominance. His presence does it for him.